You're jumping back into consulting. Are you doing creative strategy work or what are you doing?
Sort of. So last year I was heavily involved with NLP, doing a lot of like linguistic analysis, those type of things. I don't do that as much this year. And that's mostly on purpose for me, mostly because it's heavy brain work. So I decided after I came back from those 2 weeks of just being off at the beginning of June, just to like take some time for my brain to rest. I really enjoy consulting, but what I love the most was content creation.
Mm.
And I love teaching. That's what I'm good at. I think that's what I really enjoy doing. So I came back with this notion of, okay, if I'm going to do that, I basically have to productize everything that I know, which is hard, a little difficult. So I have a few courses that are in the works. For the one for this quarter, it's specifically psychology-based creative strategy, which I think is heavily needed. And then outside of that, I have a newsletter that just launched. I have a book that I'm writing. Like I'm like creating content as fast as I possibly can, which is hard. You get tapped. The brain just goes very tired after.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy it. I really love it. I also think it's just necessary for the industry. People need more education outside of media buying tactics and like copywriting psychology.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to throw the AI buzzword in there, which at this point, it's July 7th. I think the buzzword is dead. I don't see as much about it anymore, but I had somebody probably 2 months back who's an agency owner tell me that the way he was viewing AI for like the next step was that it was going to give consultants, it was going to give thought leaders an opportunity to build out models that are specific to what they do. So like creating little Sarahs running around basically.
Yeah.
And then you are training that model while other people are using your model for their business. And I just saw an email earlier this week, I think, from, do you know who Depeche Mandela is? He's like,
oh, he sounds familiar.
Like
I'd have to see his face.
He's like a Facebook ads thought leader, right? So kind of like Foxwell, right? He's coming out with something similar to that. I saw an email for that. Have you ever thought about doing anything like that for what you do?
I have. Here's the difficult part. And this is, I think this goes into like another conversation you and I are having on email, is the creative strategy industry is changing a lot right now.
Yeah.
And it always has because it's so new. We're still only about 18 months, 2 years into creative strategy itself. And people are starting to notice that like some people say they're creative strategists, but they're not really, or they're good creative strategists, but like we can't find any is the problem. Like there's maybe 4 of us in the room that pretty much know what we're doing. I find this to be a very hot button topic right now. And this is interesting because I think I've changed my stance a little bit on this. Last year, I was very solidly like creative strategy is what you need. Like you have to have a creative strategist on board. I think this is crazy important for every single brand, creative strategy at the base. And I started talking to a lot of people in the industry, specifically copywriters, who were like, hello, like we've been doing this for literally decades, like years and years and years. All the copywriters in here know psychology and consumer behavior and research. Like this is what we've been doing as a part of our job forever. And that's what we have done is we are the creative strategists. We just call ourselves copywriters. So after talking with all of those people, and this does go back to like, would I ever start like a community? Probably not. And here's the reason why. I think it's going to change too much.
Do you think the input is changing or do you think the output is changing or both? And by that, I mean consumer psychology, customer insights, rational emotional motivators, economic trends. Obviously, economic trends change, but do you think that piece is changing or do you think it's the output of like, oh, hook, value offer, tight UGC works best or this or that, or is it both?
I think it's both.
Okay.
Mostly because I think AI is actually helping us understand our consumers way better than we have before. Because now we can take all of this random data from a post-purchase survey that we've had on our site for 10 years but never changed, dump it into chat and say, chat, analyze this. And chat goes, here's all the top motivators. Here's the emotions that are coming out. Like, here's all the products that they love and here's why they purchased from you within seconds. So AI, to wrap that into this system, is becoming one of the best ways to find out things about your customers that you just can't get in any other form. And on the output side, 3 reasons why it's not going to work anymore. You know, people are already starting to see that, like, I can't run a TikTok made me buy it and have it work as well as it did last year. It still works. It's just not working to the level that it was. And the issue that we're having with that is there are very few innovators creatively in the industry. Savannah Sanchez was probably one of the very first that saw TikTok in particular, came in and brought in this new creative wave of concept. TikTok made me buy it. 3 reasons why, like those type of things all came from kind of her brainstorming session, right? Like she's just brilliant. The issue that we're having now is she hasn't innovated anything in quite a long time. And other people in the industry, myself included, haven't really innovated creatively yet because we've been rehashing all of these same concepts for all of the brands and they're starting to fatigue. And so now we're starting to feel pressure to innovate again. So it's a cycle, right? We innovate, it works, it fatigues, we feel pressure, we innovate, it works, it fatigues, we feel pressure over and over and over and over and over. So right now we're in a pressure phase. And it's really interesting because Barry Hott was one of the ones that actually kind of coined this whole sticky note, right? Like a sticky note ad. And he was the one that was kind of like pushing it forward to use it. I don't know if he actually made it up, but like he was the one that kind of pushed it into the industry. And now that one too is starting to fatigue. So it's just concepts and creative ideas are very, very cyclical. And it takes a lot of creative energy for someone to come up with brilliant, brand new, trending concepts at the top.
Yeah. And two, I feel like part of it is just bandwidth. Like if you think about larger companies, and this is one of the things I'm hoping to achieve with Data Ally, the build that we were talking about is, as companies grow, they have more people, higher headcount, which is awesome, more power, but also it turns into siloed departments. So then like there's a team that's on Google Analytics and a team that's on website data and a team that's on Facebook ads. So like, yes, we know that click-through rate was good and website conversion rate was low, but we can't actually connect Facebook ad copy to Hotjar on website and see what happened that way. And I think a lot of brands are struggling to innovate with their ads properly that way. And two, I think, I fully agree. I think there is a lot of opportunity for, 3 reasons why and stuff like that. But a lot of times, brands can have their own specific styles or creatives that work for them as well, right? We work with a clothing company and all they really run is just like high quality photography, like product photography lifestyle. And it works. Like it just crushes for them.
Yeah. I think the brands are going to start to basically generate their own creative trends, which I find is currently happening. True Classic is probably one of the biggest brands that I could see doing this already, where they're not necessarily following industry creative trends. They're making up their own. So for True Classic, and this goes down into foundational basics of marketing, which is what's your USP? Like, why the heck should anybody purchase from you compared to anything else, right? Their USP was built on this notion of emotion in t-shirt, which is not something that I think any other brand had tried to go after, especially in apparel, because it's one of the hardest spaces to advertise in emotionally, because nobody knows why anybody purchases a shirt emotionally. It's very difficult to identify because style is personal to every single human on the planet. It's very difficult to get a thread that goes like broad, right? So what True Classic did was they came in with this concept of, okay, what is a common emotion that the majority of our men are dealing with? For these guys, it was more body image, right? I want to be accepted, whether it's by a significant other or my friends or my parents or like my, whatever. Acceptance was big for these guys and they weren't getting it in the shirts that they had. And so they just capitalized on this concept of emotional marketing and it worked. It worked so well for them and still is.
Yeah. Now my mind's kind of just drawing at different things and it's probably won't make sense when I put it out there, but do you think the problem with the lack of innovation with creative strategy is coming from, and I know this ain't going to be a black or white answer, but is coming from the fact that a lot of brands, let me take away the word brands, a lot of companies don't do proper brand alignment and branding, so they don't give marketing a lot to work with? Or is it because honestly in the D2C industry, a lot of the industry is self-taught and relies on thought leaders to come up with things, and that creates kind of a landscape where innovation waits on those thought leaders to do it?
Yeah. I think it's both, honestly. I think a lot of brand founders, just from the ones that I know, started a brand because they wanted to start a brand, right? So they chose a product based upon, I think this product will work. A lot of people in this industry came from drop shipping days, where it was like, you got to choose just the right product. That's the most important piece. And even if you didn't come from drop shipping, that was the basis of the message you received, which is product is everything. Product is some of it, but product is not all of it. Product is only as good as whatever separates it outside of the market that it's currently in, right? So Apple is a really good example of this. There were MP3 players at the wazoo. I mean, I had a Walkman when I was I'm dating myself, but like everybody had some sort of an MP3 player, right? MP3 players were also, on the whole, all one color, all one function. They didn't really have any separation. Apple came in and completely pulled themselves out of the market just by changing the color, right? Now, did they have great innovation? Were they able to put more songs on it? Were they able to do more like technology-wise? Absolutely. That was a part of it. But their competitors can take technology away from them. They couldn't take the elevated product experience away. And Apple was the very first one to do it. And that's the reason why it worked for them. And nobody else has been able to come in and compete with Apple's experience. Humans are very experiential based. So on the front end, yes, I think brands don't know how to create USPs. They don't know how to create unique mechanisms. And they think that their product is the mechanism. If you can ask yourself the question, can my competitors take this away from me? And the answer is yes. You don't have anything unique, and your brand is probably not going to grow easily. You need to find something that basically no one else can take away from you, which is difficult. It's very difficult.
Yeah, another good example in a different niche is those Jolie shower heads, where they're selling purified water, technically, but they're really selling skincare and beauty routine in the shower, which is just genius.
They created the craziest USP I've ever seen. Skincare from a shower head. Like, what a weird mechanism, right? But it works so incredibly well. And this is interesting. It kind of goes back to your other point of like innovation in the industry, especially creatively. Thought leaders in any industry are extremely important, right? Because they drive forward different thought processes. And for that particular brand, some thought leader somewhere was able to influence somebody in their brand on the product team who said, what if we go after this instead of just being a shower head? So I would 100% agree that like thought leaders in this industry are few and far between. They're very difficult to find and cultivate, because you really have to find somebody who just has a strange brain. And once that person's here, then you have to give them space to think. Your job is just to think and present new ideas to us so that we can come up with better ideas through your ideas, right? Brains don't think well in vacuum. Have to have another person or another brain in the room to be able to bounce ideas off of. That's how ideas get better. That's how we come up with shower heads that can do skincare.
Yeah.
It's bonkers.
Yeah. And they're growing like crazy too. Look, I know you said that creative strategy, you were kind of relating it to, or the input for creative strategy, relating it to copywriting and what copywriters have done. The gap with copywriters is knowing, or just marketers, is knowing what works on Facebook or knowing what works on TikTok that way. So, and this is $1 million question, and I would love for you to just answer it point blank and if possible, but how do you get that training instilled in them? Like outside of just following Sarah Levinger on LinkedIn and following Savannah Sanchez or Andrew Foxwell or whoever, like how do you bridge that gap?
I think this is like $1 million question for literally the entire universe is how do you educate people on something they don't have any knowledge or any experience in quickly? Because the creative strategists that I know that are very, very well versed have been doing this for at least a decade. Anybody less than a decade can still do it at a very like high level, but there's a difference. There's just a difference in output that comes out. The concepts are a little bit more well developed. They're also a little bit more emotional at that point. So I've been reading actually a lot of books lately on like the science of belief, like how we can change our minds about things and what the neurological implications of that is. And I think a lot of this comes down to, what does the industry already believe about these people? And can we change that belief so that it makes it easier for these people to learn? That's what we're currently struggling with. It's not an education issue. Because if you wanted to get education, Dara Denny has stuff, Savannah has stuff, I have stuff. You can get education anywhere. The issue that we're having is that people get educated and still don't quite know how to do it, right? So we're struggling, I think, with almost allowing people an open space to learn and make mistakes, which is not very well accepted in this industry, making mistakes. Mistakes we learn. I mean, the only reason I became a creative strategist was because I had 15 years of making a lot of mistakes with a lot of brands, some of which were like, we're never working with Sarah again. That's everybody's story, right?
And look, I'm a bracketer. I like to put things in buckets. I like to categorize, and that's probably not the best way to do it. But if we're thinking about creative strategy, you have your input, your consumer psychology, right? You have the copywriting experience. You have not button pushing graphic design, but you have graphic design ability, like the ability to understand what type of creative needs to be done. You have the ability to read and understand paid social data, to understand performance. What are other key areas that are important for a creative strategist?
Oh gosh. Outside of performance and creative, some of the things that obviously benefit me is understanding psychology, consumer behavior, like those type of things. But some of the other ones that I've seen that are beneficial that most people don't really know about is the ability to communicate in general. So I've noticed that the more you talk, if you have somebody that can explain concepts in a very simplified form, very good creative strategist candidate. And I met one in a brand probably about 6 months ago, hair care brand. And she wasn't currently in a creative strategist role. She was actually more in a project management role over the actual ad creation. So she was managing the graphic designers, copywriters, videographers. But we noticed that she just had an insanely simple way of explaining things that was just like, dang, that's good. Like her metaphor use, like she just understood how to explain things in layman's terms. You can find somebody like that. You can train performance, and you could probably even train creative.
I think that goes for every job role in the agency world. Honestly, that soft skill of communication is so important. It can get overlooked because everything's always about ROAS and skills and stuff like that. But that communication piece is so important.
Yeah, I think this is why copywriters are so good at what they do too, is because they've taken years of courses and trainings and things, not to learn how to persuade people, but to learn how to communicate. They just know which words to use in what order at what time. That's what they're good at.
Yeah, we're not doing the ClickFunnels. All right, so I mean, at the time of recording this, it's July. This will probably be out pretty soon. But what's current with creative strategy? Like, what's on your forefront? Are you looking at Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or?
I'm not currently prepping for Black Friday yet. I don't usually start prepping for that until the end of July, which still sounds early. But Black Friday hit quick. The shopping mentality for gifting actually starts its roster somewhere at the end of July, early August, when you start seeing like back to school stuff come out in Target and Walmart and everywhere else. Usually the big box stores start to put out this nudge is what they would call it, right? Like it's just like a suggestion of like, well, hey, back to school's coming up. Like you should think about it. Nobody's buying back to school stuff in July, but the fact that they have it on the shelves is starting to basically give some sort of an indication that this is coming up and you should start thinking about this. Brands should be doing the same. So I never follow the big like box brands for any sort of marketing because I don't think they do it correctly. But for D2C, it's beneficial to watch when they start bringing this stuff out, because that's when you should start nudging people with your ad, with your landing pages, with your emails of like, did you remember that in 6 weeks this is happening? Because 6 weeks is a short amount of time in consumer world. It's like just a fraction of a second. So really prepping 6 weeks ahead of time is probably beneficial for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's very true. And we work with software companies and with e-commerce companies. And that's one thing we've been looking at for one particular software company, because they work with e-commerce, is even starting like in July, because they're needing to prep people for getting their customers ready for Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Yeah. Humans are weird. Like we are busy, right? And our world is highly dopamine focused because of all of the social media that we're constantly on, because we're online constantly. So you actually kind of need to remind people that holidays happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise they forget. It sounds weird, but they do.
Yeah. I almost forgot it was July 4th this past week. So
Especially for those ancillary ones. I mean, Black Friday is obviously Super Bowl time for the entirety of D2C.
yeah.
But like most customers don't start actively thinking about Black Friday until after Halloween.
Yeah. I saw last year there was mainly a lot of sustainability brands, but brands were moving away from Black Friday, Cyber Monday, A, because of the sustainability piece, but B, because of the margins with it as well.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it went from like a couple of days to like a week and then like a whole month, it felt like. But what are you feeling is happening there? I mean, do you think a lot of brands are going to keep going to Black Friday, Cyber Monday?
Yes. And I have a feeling that it's just going to keep extending. I have a feeling that most humans will put a cap. We are not going to extend Black Friday into October. For some reason, I think everybody is just kind of like this. That's too much.
Yeah.
Keep October about Halloween, right? People are just going to be stingy about that. But I saw people starting to run Black Friday deals the first week of November last year, crushing it, just crushing it. So I think all of November will become Black Friday November. Black November, basically, is what it's going to become. Because the brands know that they can make it work.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's interesting to see how it's evolving.
For sure.
What are you currently doing for, coming up with ideas for creative strategy? Like, what does that look like?
The ideas that I have going right now are what I would call odd.
Okay.
I'm trying to come up with as many odd ideas as I possibly can, specifically because I've been doing a lot of research around novelty and how that equates to attention with human in a digital space in particular. So everybody knows who Mr. Beast is, and like he's one of the best features we ever had. He just understands content, like he's so good. I understand that like he's very, very good at content. One of the things that he's better at though is understanding novelty. The guy has capitalized on novelty more than any other creative in the YouTube space, and he is now worth billions of dollars because of it. The thing I think brands don't understand is novelty does not equal shock value. Because sometimes Mr. Beast doesn't do anything that's shocking. It's just like strange, right? Odd, bizarre thing that he does. That's just interesting to watch because it's not something that you see on a daily basis. So I wish more brands was capitalized on novelty than trying to go for shocking or just like disgusting, right? Because oftentimes I'll see people, especially if they have a product that looks gross, like dog food or something, they'll just go for, let's turn the can upside down and let it fall out. Very eye-catching, but I'm not going for a customer that just wants to watch something weird. I'm specifically going for novelty that speaks to a particular type of person. So right now, in ideation phase for any of the brands that I'm doing ads for, I take a look at what's already in the product or in the brand that I can make or call out that's already weird. So for instance, there's a brand that I worked with this week actually to generate some ads for, that as we were going through, I noticed I was like, I don't know if anybody told you this, but your product looks like a toothpaste, like tube, but it's for coffee. It's like coffee creamer in a toothpaste tube. And I was like, has anybody ever told you that that's what's happening here? And they were like, oh yeah, most of the time, but like we try really, really hard to push away from it, right? So if anybody calls it out in the ad comments, we just don't say anything about it. And I was like, you should capitalize on that.
Peppermint flavor.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm like, because the customers noticed it. People are already noticing it. So go with the behavior that's there. And this takes just watching. Just watch what people say. It's so important, even if it's negative comments in an ad. You got to watch what people say because it tells you what they look at, what they're actually noticing. So I generated a bunch of ads that were just like, it's toothpaste, but for your brain, right? It's fortifying, but not toothpaste form. It's for your brain. Like it's better, coffee, whatever it is. And I tried so hard to push into this concept of toothpaste because it was bizarre. It's just strange and it'll get the brain to stop.
Interesting. Yeah, we were working with a kind of a disruptor brand, and their copywriter, who was very, very smart at what he did, put it as like, he liked to use provocative things
Mm.
at the top of the funnel to catch people, which is similar to what you're saying.
Yeah.
They were a toothbrush that was like it looked like a mouth guard and it had bristles top and bottom. And their
Mm.
tagline at the top was like weird, but it works.
Yeah.
Embrace it because it looked weird. Like it really did. But the ad worked.
Yeah.
It drove sales. So
Some of the best ads I've ever seen are just weird to watch. Like there's interesting stuff. Or they couple two associations together. So like the coffee ad, right? I'm like, people already know that toothpaste is here to fortify your teeth, to prevent cavity, to like keep your mouth clean. Why don't we just go with that and just tell them it's not for your teeth, it's for your brain? Because this particular product was like a mushroom base, right? Mushroom base, like coffee, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, why don't we just go after that? I mean, like some of this is kind of obvious, but not obvious to marketers because we're constantly trying to look for an angle, right?
Mhm.
What angle? Like, how can I like morph this into whatever I want it to be? I go at it from a much easier standpoint, which is like, what's obvious in this?
Yeah.
And then let's go after that because I'm lazy and I don't want to do that much work. Obvious is quicker and cheaper.
There you go. Well, look, I keep up with the stuff that you put out. I saw recently on LinkedIn, you put out a paper on BOGO having a higher conversion rate attraction than discounts. And I know you said you're in the process of updating your courses, which hopefully everything you're updating will be included in your existing course. If not, I'll pay for the new one. But tell me about that a little bit more. What updates are you doing and what?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like I am so in behind. I need a VA really bad. I have a lot of courses that are coming out on specific topics. So my entire ecosystem was basically built so that anybody who wants to learn about this stuff can, right? Low barrier to entry is kind of important for education. But the opposite side is it really just makes it easier for me because now I can start to I'm going to do one on, creative strategy using psychology. We'll do one on Black Friday. We'll do another one on iteration. We'll do one on UJC psychology. Now we're going to do one on, BOGO and discounts, those type of things. So what I'm building for the next couple months is basically trying to do one training about every 6 to 8 weeks, which takes a little bit because I usually develop very intense, like very visual, like 90 to 100 page slide decks to go through and like teach these concepts because it's just fun and because it lands better, right? Like your brain will remember it more if I have some visual representations in place. So my content is so fun and I love making it. It's like dream job status for me, but it's so much work. I'm just like, I don't know why I made this business so hard. I should not have made it at this level. Should have done something way easier. But that's, neither here nor there. That's where we are right now. So I'm lucky that I get to do what I love all day, every day. And coming up next, like I said, I have a Black Friday training that's going to be coming out probably close to August. And then just continue. I'm just going to continue to like push out more content and teach more concepts because it's just fascinating stuff. And it's funny that you bring up that BOGO one because I got so much flack for that.
Oh, really?
So much. Yeah. I had people all over my DMs that were like, that's not what works for us. And I can't believe you're putting this out there. One guy was even like, this is misinformation. This is incorrect. There are so many studies that could discount this. So then I told him, I was like, cool, can you give it to us? Because like, please prove me wrong. Like, I'm just showing you the studies that I've read, which I find interesting, and then teaching you how to use it. So please tell me if I'm wrong. And he replied, LOL. I was like, sure.
That couldn't have been a LinkedIn comment. That had to have been a Twitter interaction.
That was the Twitter one. Yeah.
Okay, I was saying.
Twitter is so nice.
Yeah, I was like, bring him on the podcast. We'll figure out what he has.
Which again, like everybody's wrong, right? Like nobody in this industry really knows what they're doing. We're coming up with the stuff that we have known from experience is real and work. And then for Sarah, like I just read a lot. I'm reading a lot of studies on different things that have worked in the past. I'm trying to make sure that they're peer reviewed, that they're double, tripled fact checked before I share them. But like, this is how we learn,
Yeah.
It's not to get so cranky about.
I mean, no, I totally see where you're coming from when you post it. I mean, it's good information. One of the best things that, when I had Andrew Foxwell on here, one of the biggest takeaways I had is where he said, there is no best practice, right?
Yeah,
like there is
100%.
things that work for a lot of brands, but really there's different things to do for different companies. And he said he tries to ask himself every day, like, how could I be wrong? Like how can I learn something new today?
Yeah. I do the same exact thing because I'm like, I'm probably wrong. Like I might be right about 90% of the time, but there's going to be times where maybe I didn't read the study correctly. Maybe something changed, or like they found a new study that debunks this one. And that's totally fine. It goes back to that sentiment of like, we need to give more room in this industry for people to make mistakes or to learn, because that's all that really is. Not technically wrong. You're just learning.
Yeah.
And that's how learning is.
Yeah. And it's tough when there's ad dollars
I
associated.
know.
Yeah.
I know. It's hard when we're trying to make money over here. That's very
very difficult. Well, look, at the end of every episode, I ask 3 questions. You've already been on, so I've already asked you the 3 main questions, but we'll go with the first one that I normally ask, and then I'll pivot on the other 2. If you had to summarize today's talk into a marketing mindset, I'll get more specific. If you had to summarize creative strategy into a marketing mindset in 3 words or less, what would it be?
In 3 words? Oh gosh.
I'll give
I
you
thought
5.
I had a sentence. Creative strategy. Okay. Summarize. I guess this comes down to having a strategy for getting attention. That's really all creative strategy is.
Mm-hmm.
Just having a strategy for getting attention. I feel like I should have done better on that one.
Well, get attention. We'll go with that. That's perfect. And then you have the courses coming out, which I'm sure will be announced in your newsletter. But where can people go to sign up for your newsletter?
Oh my gosh. It's actually now in my Twitter bio. Somebody pointed that out. They were like, "Do you even have a newsletter?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's on my website." And he was like, "Don't do that." But put it in your bio. I was like,
Twitter, put in your Threads bio too.
See, even Sarah's learning new things. So yeah, go to Twitter. I'm at Sarah Levinger, and it's right in my bio. Please sign up. I would love to chat with you.
Boom,
I'm
boom.
excited to be growing up.
Awesome. Sarah, thanks for coming on.
Yes, thank you. This was so fun. Appreciate it.